Hello everyone. My name is Liliann, and I'll be your instructor for Intro to Python. Um, we'll just be going over like the basic concepts of it, and today we'll be discussing what Python is and what programming is in general.
Enjoy this movie, then visit brainpop.com for much more. Duh! Have you been standing here all night? Uh-oh. Were you dividing by 0 again? Dear Tim and Moby, what is computer programming? Thanks, Amy. You picked a good time to ask. Moby zapped his operations chip and he can't seem to do anything. Right, buddy? Don't worry, I've got you covered. We'll just switch you over to voice command. There. Now I can program you until your replacement chip arrives. I know, your brain is no ordinary computer. But it does have some things in common with the ones people use. Computers can do all sorts of amazing things, from navigating the internet to piloting an airplane. But they can't do anything at all without a set of instructions. That's all a computer program is, a series of steps that a computer can follow. And somebody has to write those steps. Unlike you, computers can't really understand English. So programmers have to write their instructions in special languages. That's called coding, and the lines of instructions are known as code. There are literally hundreds of different languages. Thankfully, you don't need to know any of them to understand some programming basics. Just follow along as I code Moby. Okay, Moby, walk to the counter. Alright, sorry about that. I have to remember that programs need to be really specific. They have to be step-by-step ordered instructions, an algorithm. That's why so many programming tools automatically number your lines of code. Let's try it. Moby, first lift your right foot, then move it ahead of your left foot, then put it down. Great! Let's call those 3 lines step right and save it as a function. That's like a mini program we can call on whenever we want. Now, let's make an identical step function for the left foot. Moby, step left, then step right. Now repeat lines 1 and 2 over and over. Repeating a section of code like this is called a loop, and it's something you can do in any programming language. Moby, stop, then walk back here, then stop. You've just been programmed. Lift your arms in triumph. Yeah, it is sort of like making a recipe. Instead of telling a computer what to do, you're telling it how to do it. Speaking of recipes, how about making a peanut butter sandwich for lunch? Moby, first put peanut butter on 1 slice of bread, then use the knife to spread it around. Okay, keep it together. Programmers have to be patient. You have to keep refining or iterating your code until it works the way you want it to. If there's a mistake or bug, you have to find out where it is and fix it. Moby, first open the peanut butter jar, then use the knife to scoop out some peanut butter, then spread it on a slice of bread, and finally put another slice on top. That's closer, but I think I'll just get lunch at school. Hey, that reminds me, I'm late. Quick, Moby. First, walk to a seat, then sit down in it. I can't take you anywhere. Here, try this. First, check if the closest seat is occupied. If no, then sit. If yes, then move on to the next seat and repeat. Yep, and we got to another big part of coding, conditional statements. That's when the program looks at an unknown value or variable and does different things depending on what it is. In this case, the variable was whether the seat was empty. Moby.
Okay. So loops and conditionals we'll be covering more later on. So I think you got the basic gist of what programming is. And so what a programming language is, it's a set of simple instructions for a computer that allows you to automate tasks. And the different coding concepts are different types of vocabulary. And the syntax, or like programming syntax, is basically grammar. There's a certain way that you write your functions out. There's a certain way you have to, like for example, if you're writing it out, you can't use certain words or anything like that. So that's what it means by syntax. You have to follow a specific way of writing when programming. And so why would you choose to learn Python if there are a bunch of different programming languages available? So for one, it's free. Two, it works on all the different operating systems. It also has a very simple syntax or grammar compared to other programming languages such as C++ or Java. It's a lot of people compare Python kind of like reading English because it doesn't use a lot of complicated words or a lot of different complicated functions. And it also has a lot of different libraries, so you can use it for a lot of different tasks. So for example, a lot of big apps, you can use it for to design your own applications. Or if you're like analyzing large data sets, you're also able to do that as well. Okay, so one very important concept. So anyway, okay, let me backtrack. Does anybody have any questions so far? No? All right. So we're going to go into the first concept of Python. So this is called variables. So variables are typically used if you're writing out a specific function, and if you need to write a specific set of instructions, instead of rewriting that set of instructions every single time, you can save it underneath a variable and you're able to just call that set of instructions, which simplifies your code. It makes it much easier to read and to look through. A variable is sort of like a nickname in a way, where it's just like a shortened version of it. So you have any name for a variable except a name with spaces. So for example, if I wanted to name something that was like 2 spaces, I'm not able to name it. Can I annotate? So for example, let's just say I wanted to create a variable called 2 numbers, right? I'm not able to type it out as 2 numbers. If you did that, then it would cause an error in your code and your code would break. So instead, I would either have to use, so I'll either have to like add no space, just like keep a group together like that, or you can use something that's called a camel case, where it's like you capitalize the first letter of it, so you can see the difference, so you're able to see between the 2 words, or a snake case where you use I blinked out on the word what it's called.
Underscore.
Underscore, yeah, where you can use the underscore to separate between the words, so it'll be 2 numbers instead. You also can't use specific an existing Python command. So for example, if I'm adding 2 numbers, I wouldn't be able to use something like sum, because if you're calling sum in Python, that's calling for you to add 2 numbers together already. Like that's already predefined in the language when downloading on the computer. So because of that, that would also cause an error. You also can't use something, You also can't use something that starts with either a numeral or a symbol. So it has to be all like letters. So yeah. Okay. Next slide. So yeah, you should never have quotes around it. It should just be the letters itself. So what you have a string, which is the type of data type we'll get to later on, those always have quotes around it. So in Python, these are the basic data types in a program. So data type is basically what it's able to input, or like if you're able to analyzing data, what it could accept. So an integer is a whole number. So it could be either from negative infinity all the way to positive infinity. As long as there's no decimal point, it's able to be classified as an integer. It can't be a fraction. It always has to be a whole number. However, a float, it could be any decimal. Float is all decimal numbers. So technically an integer could be a float, but or float could be an integer, but an integer, what's it? Sorry. An integer could be a float, but not all floats could be integers. So yeah. So anything, if it includes a decimal point, if you even put 3.0, it's still considered a float. And a string is words or just a series of characters. And it's all written inside quotation marks. So that's why variables, you can't have it inside of quotation marks or else it will be considered a string. So strings, it always has quotation marks around it. You can either use double or single. I think it's just better. Like it doesn't really matter whether you use single quotes or double quotes, I think for the most part. Okay. It's not working. Okay. Hold on one second. Let me check the slide. Did it get cut off? Yeah, okay. Okay, I got it. Sorry. Oops, wrong thing. Sorry about that. My computer is giving me all types of trouble today, I guess. So yeah, math and Python. So Python you could also use as a calculator. Sometimes I do this actually if I'm like in the middle of like programming something or in the middle of a project, and sometimes if I just don't feel like reaching for my calculator, I'll just use Python instead for it. So you could use the plus sign as addition, the dash as for subtraction, the star key or asterisk as multiplication, and you would use a slash sign as division. So for example, for addition, it will be just 3 plus 4, and then the code would just, if you press run, then the code will give you an output of 7. If I went here and I said 4 minus 3, then the code would just give me an output of 1. Here, if I did, let's just say 2 times 1, they don't just give me an output of 2. And if I did 14/2, then it would automatically give me an output of 7 here. Anyone have any questions so far?
Yes, quick question. Do we put a space between the number and the plus or a minus, or it doesn't matter, or we don't have to?
You don't have to for now. I don't think it would make much of a difference. It's just the only thing about putting a space, it just makes it easier to read, in my opinion. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Okay, so it was described earlier in the brain pop video what a function is. So it's a command that performs complex actions, so you don't have to individually type it out. And so in Python, you always end a function in a parentheses. So you put in the parentheses, what you will put in the parentheses is usually if you're calling a certain, like a number or either a variable, or you could also put in a data type, depending on what type of function it is. So some of the functions are built in. Some you can make on your own that we'll likely do later on in the coming weeks. So what print is, it outputs some information. So for example, you know, okay. I'll just show you here. So let's just say, hold on. Okay. So print, it's a built-in function you can see here. This is what Notebook will be working with later on. You can see it later on. We'll be working it in the next few minutes actually. But let's just say print. If I said print 4 here and I press run, then it will give me back an output of 4. So that's what you said, it always ends in parentheses. You always just put what you want to print out or have returned back to you in the parentheses. You can also add in strings in here. So if I put in hello world, it will return back automatically hello world. Or you could also put in a float. So if I put in pi, it will return back 3.14. Another is data type. So if you need to find out the data type of something or what type of data type it is. So let's just say I put in type, this will tell you what, yeah. So I put in type parentheses and I put in 3.14. I press run and it returns back. Python will tell me that it's a float. Usually this is good if you're trying to like work with a data set or something. It's really helpful. If there's specific variables you're also working with that somebody else had, it also helps a lot for that. So it may seem at first like it's kind of obvious you already know if there's float or not, but later on it is pretty helpful. So yeah, so this is the file we'll be working with today. So you can kind of get a hang of it yourselves and working with different data types and working with Python itself. So I'll share the file in the chat real quick. So what we'll be using to work in Python is called a Jupyter Notebook. So what a notebook is, it's kind of a place where you're able to like write and add in notes in between the different Python cells and where you can run it in. So it's still an active Python like editor. Compared to most editors, you're not able to really have like add in instructions and pictures and all of that. A notebook is kind of an in-between. It's good if you're just learning. So the type of notebook we'll be using it in is called Google Collab. So all you just need is a Gmail account to log into Google Drive and just open it up. You will need to be on a computer though. It doesn't work on iPads or tablets. So I'll just go and share the file in the chat and you can just download it to your computer. So you could just go in, copy in the file, copy in the link. and then just download it. And then you'll go to collab.google.com. Or is it collab.research.google.com? And then file, upload notebook. Hold on, let me just sign into this real quick. Okay, if you're signed into your Google account, you can just upload new notebook. And then choose the file. Sorry, that was one. It will be called week 1. This thing keeps reloading. And then you'll have it in there. So yeah. Does everyone have it?
Oh, it doesn't go that fast.
Yep.
Chat. Okay.
If you want, I could share the slides after as well. I could send it in the end.
It'll be great.
Okay. Okay. So I'll also show you how to work Google Collab as well, because we'll be using it throughout the duration of this class. So you could have a cell. So a cell is where you would run. Okay. You open Collab. In order to open Collab, you just have to type in this link, collab.research. Here, I'll type it in. collab.research.google.com. So you could click it and then you press upload new notebook, open week 1, week 1.ipynb. Okay. Does everyone have it? Or
I have it.
okay.
Have it.
I do as well. All right.
Can you show me how to get in again?
How to get into Collab, Google Collab?
Yeah.
All right. So once you get in, so first you have to download this file right here. So just press download here. And so once you get in, you press file up here, upload notebook, and then you would choose week 1.ipynb. And then it would just open up like this. Owen, you got it? Owen?
Yeah, I got it. Sorry, my mic's not working great. I put it in the chat.
All right. Okay. So for Google Collab, this would be a cells. So the cells is where you could type in the code and you could run it. So you could add in a new cell by just clicking up here and pressing code. So it add in a new code cell here. In order to run a cell, you could either press this button here, or you could just press Shift Return or Shift Enter in order to run. So if you wanted to type in any notes or anything like that, like for example, it's usually good practice to comment out stuff. So for example, if I needed to label, oh, this is used, it contains a certain variable, you could just add in a hashtag or a pound sign before a line. And what it will do is Python will just skip over that certain line, so it won't try and process it. And so it makes it easier. For example, if you have a certain variable or something that, like, if I wrote a certain variable in a code 6 months ago, and I need to look back at it, remember it, it'll help me. So it's usually good practice to like try and write down the variables and what they were if you are working on a large script. And in order to remove a cell, you could just use this trash button right here if you just don't want the code cell anymore. Okay. So right now we'll be working with the different data types. So you could just create your own variable. So for now, I'll probably use var. And in order to assign a variable to a value, you just use the equal sign. And then you enter in whichever data type you like. So if I just like var equals 4, and then you press run so that your program would know that now whenever you call var, it would be equal to 4. So now if I go on to this next cell, and I called var again, instead of printing out just nothing, it would be 4. Okay. So these next few problems you probably work on by yourself, and we'll just reconvene in about 10 minutes. Just try and complete the next few lines up to type function. You don't have to do the challenges if you're not up to that. If you're not able to reach the challenges, that's fine. So yeah. If you have any questions though, I'll still be here.
So we just tried, and it seems that we have to put space between the operators.
Oh, you do? Oh, okay.
It wouldn't run for us without
Yeah.
it.
I guess specifically in Collab, I don't know, I did it before in other editors and it worked. I guess specifically in Collab, you need to put in a space. So I saw Susanna had a question. So how do you create 2 variables and does var2 equals 8 work? Okay. So how do you create 2 separate ones? You just have to create it on a new line. So if you wanted to, you just space it out like this and it should work. If you do want to check if a variable is working or not, just print it out to see if it gives you the correct value. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
All right. All right, so we only have a couple minutes left before it ends, so I'll probably just go over the answers now and just walk you through it. So like I did here before, you have var equals 4 here, and then to print it out, you just put print and then the variable name in parentheses here. So to create two separate variables, you could just have just create one on one line. So you have it as an integer here, or I'll just do 5, and then var 3 equals 6. So in order to print out the difference between the two, you could just do print parentheses var 3 minus var 2. I'll have to run this. And then just run this cell, and then it'll give you the difference. So 6, 5 minus 5, it's 1. So to create two variables that are defined as strings, yeah, strings are just quotation marks. So let's just say string 1, you would add in your quotation marks, and you could have hello, or you could just put in your first name, and string 2. And in order to print the sum of the two variables, it'll be the same as doing regular addition or subtraction. So you just do print parentheses string 1 plus string 2. If you run both, it would still give you the same one. Now, if you wanted to add in a space between those two strings, you would have to go and add in quotation marks, put it in a space, and add in a plus sign. It's kind of like what we were saying earlier, what we covered in the brain pod video, right? Python, whenever it takes a command, it takes it very literal. So even though to us, it might seem as like common sense to add in a space, every little thing, or you have to make sure you're defining it and adding it in yourself. So to create two or more variables that are defined as any type of data, so assign the sum of those two variables to a new variable, print out the value of the new variable. So if I were to have integer 1, 4, and if I wanted a float as well, so we could just put 4.5. So to assign the sum of the new variables, it would just be integer 1 plus float 1. In order to get a result for this one, you don't have to add in print here. Print is only if you want to like see the output for yourself. But for Python, as long as you put it in here, it will just automatically store it. It just won't show it. And then once you print out the value of the two, that's where you see it will print out the sum of 2 automatically. But if I didn't press print, it would just store it and not return it as output. Okay. So
I'm sorry, I think we're doing something wrong because we keep getting a name error all the time in all those exercises. It tells us that var 3 is not defined, and then the same thing we have for string 1 is not defined.
You have to make sure you're running every single cell beforehand. So let's just say over here, if I didn't run var 2 and var 3, it doesn't know, since var 2 and var 3, it wasn't like ran through the program and it doesn't have it stored inside. There's nothing defined there.
Okay.
Okay, so we need to run this and then run this.
Yeah.
Yes, it's working.
Yes,
All
it's
right, thank you.
working.
So yeah. So to use the type function, okay. So the type function, you would just add in, you could also use it with a variable as well. So let's just say here, you add in you had here, and then you printed it, and it printed out as a string. So why would it here be defined as a string instead of a float? Anyone know? Okay. So the reason why, as long as it adds quotation marks around it, it's automatically a string. No matter what, even if it's technically an integer or float, it would always be a string as soon as you add in the quotation marks. However, if we remove those quotation marks here, then it would say it's a float then. But if you add them back, it's just a string. So if you wanted to print out the type, the data types of, let's just say, bar3, so so first you would have print, and then in there you would have type, and then you would have in these parentheses bar3. So it says bar3 is an integer. Okay, so did anyone get up to here, to the hello world portion? All right, so Adam, what did you do for this part? You can either like type it in, or if you're not able to speak, just type it in the chat. Okay. It's fine if you didn't do it right. We'll go over it. We're going over it right now. Okay. So let's just say you had a variable. Set a variable for what though? Okay. Okay. It's already 3 o'clock, so I guess I'll just type it out. So let's just say hello equals string hello world, and then just print out hello. You can have there. Or also, if you wanted to, you could have it separate as well. So let's just say you had hello world. So you could also have print hello plus, ooh, ran it too early. Hello plus quotation marks. Yeah, same thing. Variable name doesn't matter. You could have variables set as anything. As long as it's just the right syntax, it's fine. Hello plus world. I'm gonna print it out. Hello world. All right. So thank you everybody for coming today. We hit time, but thank you so much. And I hope you learned a lot from today's lesson. I hope you're excited to continue learning Python as well.